Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. Let's jump right in. Independence equals liberty equals freedom. All right. Number one. According to the Constitution for the United States of North America Republic, Amendment 13, slavery is abolished except as punishment for a crime. All right. Number two. According to Abraham Lincoln, it is a crime to be a Negro. A guy named William Dungey, he was a melanated man. They start calling him a Negro, start calling him Black Bill. He retained Abraham Lincoln back before he became president to fight the case for him. While fighting the case in court, Abraham Lincoln said, and I quote, "Though it is a crime to be a Negro, it is a crime to be a Negro. It is no crime to be born with black skin." Lincoln goes on to say, "His skin may not be as white as ours, but I say he is not a Negro. My client may be a Moor, but he is not a Negro." And then you do the etymology on Moor, and it says that it's being a dark people in relation to Europeans, and that their name was a synonym for Negro. Now, William Dungey fought the accusation of being a Negro because an accusation of being called Negro would have resulted in the loss of his marriage, property, and his right to continue to live in the state of Illinois, the very definition of slavery, no right to self-determination. Now, this establishes that Negroes are indeed criminals by the very act of being Negro. To be specific, this is not saying that Negroes have a criminal nature, although we note that this was and still is widely believed by so-called whites. This is saying that it is a crime to simply be a Negro. Even if said Negro has not committed a crime, he's still a criminal because being a Negro is a criminal act and makes one a slave. Now, as proven by the Atlanta City Council Moorish American Week Proclamation, Moors are not Negroes, colored folk, black people, nor African American, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865. This proves that Negro is not a bloodline, it is not permanent, it is a legal status which can be changed. Now, number three, according to the Virginia Casual Killing Act, 1669, if any slave resist his master, and by the extremity of the correction should chance to die, that his death shall not be considered a felony, but the master be acquitted from molestation. All right, an example, Eric Gardner, Tennessee versus Gardner. The judge ruled that when a law enforcer is pursuing a suspect, the officer may apply deadly force to prevent escape if he or she has probable cause to believe that the suspect poses a threat. So, to recap, according to the Constitution, if you commit a crime, then you can be enslaved. According to Abraham Lincoln, if you are a Negro, then you have already committed a crime by simply being a Negro, because it is a crime to be a Negro. As Negro, you are considered a slave, but you can legally contest being a Negro. Finally, according to the Virginia Casual Killing Act 1669, you, as a Negro slave, can be casually killed. What the fuck? And the murderer must be acquitted. All right. A quick look at the Dred Scott case will show you that a Negro whose ancestors were imported into the U.S. and sold as slaves, whether enslaved or free, cannot be an American citizen and therefore has no standing to sue in federal court. But we are not Negroes. We are Moors. William Dungey, Abraham Lincoln, Atlanta Moorish Week Proclamation. And our ancestors were not imported from anywhere. Besides, you don't import humans. You import commodities. Slaves, due to their sellable status, were in effect commodities. And herein lies the criminal aspect in accepting the Negro status. You commit fraud. You commit fraud by saying that you are a commodity when really you are a living human being. Therefore, it is a crime to be a Negro. We are Aboriginal, Indigenous, and Native to the Americas. If you deny your nationality by agreeing to be black, Negro, colored, African American, etc., you have no rights, just like Dred Scott, just like Eric Gardner. You agree to be a Negro, you agree to be a slave, a commodity. However, if you proclaim your nationality, then your birthrights are constitutionally secured, just like William Dungey, who won his case. Another example is Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, who proclaimed his Moorish nationality, took his true title, Ali, Muhammad Ali, and thereby avoided the draft. Ali successfully enforced his constitutional rights. Now, let's talk about contracts. The Constitution protects all those who have not contracted away their birthrights. The Constitution also protects the right to contract. Therefore, if you contract away your liberties, you have no liberties. If you have a birth certificate, a social security card, a driver's license, an application for state benefits, a school enrollment form, all of which are contracts with the state, which list you as black, Negro, African American, etc., then you have created a contract wherein you have forfeited your nationality and therefore you have no constitutional rights, because black, Negro, and African American are not nationalities. They are not of the internationally recognized family of nations, and therefore Negroes, blacks, colored people, African Americans, etc. are not considered to be people. They are slaves and commodities, and thus are not considered a part of we the people. Let me show you how contracting with the states steals your liberties. According to Second American Jurisprudence, First Constitutional Law, Section 329, page 1135, personal liberty largely consists of the right of locomotion, to go where and when one pleases, the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon by horse-drawn carriage, wagon, or automobile is not a mere privilege which can be permitted or prohibited at will, but the common right which he has under his right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. All right. Now, according to Shapiro versus Thomas, per the Supreme Court, you have a fundamental right to travel. According to Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, the state does not have the power to license or tax a right guaranteed to the people. Therefore, what is a driver's license? All right. If you have a constitutional secured right to travel and it's a fundamental right and no state can license or tax a right, then what is a driver's license? A contract with the state that lists you as black, takes away your human status. All right. According to the Constitution, Second Amendment, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. If the state cannot license or tax a right, and I have the right to bear arms, then what is a license to carry other than a license and a tax? Note. According to Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, if a state does convert your right into a privilege, e.g. a license, and charges a tax, you can ignore the license and the fee and engage in your right with impunity. But a slave or a commodity, black, Negro, colored, African American, a slave or a commodity cannot exercise a right. If you contract with the state wherein the contract lists you as black, Negro, etc., then you are a slave or a commodity. Now, here's some proof from the government that driver's license are contracts with the state. Here's a letter from Ralph Milstead, Milstead, Director at the Department of Public Safety. This is written to him, and it says, I have the link in this video where you can find this. It says, it has come to my attention that numerous individuals in our state have rescinded all of their contracts with the United States federal government, the state of Arizona, and each of its political subdivisions, establishing themselves as free men under the organic national constitution of the Republic of the United States of America. Consequently, they may be driving without auto registration, driver's license, or any other evidence of contract. Because many law enforcement personnel may be unaware of the contractual nature of auto registration and driver's license. Contractual nature. Many law enforcement personnel are unaware of the contractual nature of the auto registration and the driver's license. It is conceivable that this situation may lead to confrontation between these individuals and law enforcement personnel. I urge you to inform yourself and your personnel about this matter as soon as possible. All right, that's from the Department of Safety. Now I have another one. Give me just 1 second. And this one is from, this one is to Governor Pat McCrory. And this one is from, I think, Noor Eisenberg. And I'll have the link for this one too. Dear Governor McCrory, we are sending this correspondence to make you aware of the unconstitutional acts committed by your law enforcement agencies and state courts against the people of North Carolina. We the people, not slaves, not blacks, not Negroes, the people, the Moors. These acts may or may not have been committed knowingly or unintentionally, but we are writing to your office to ensure that these violations are brought to your attention so they can be addressed and corrected. As you may or may not know, there are people in your state whose status is ostensibly different than that of the average U.S. citizen and are considered foreign nationals, claim your nationality, your Moorish nationality, or American nationalities, the true American, the first ones were Aboriginal, with certain safeguards and protections under the law. Our primary concern is that their travel rights in your state are not infringed. So again, you have people within the government, high-ranking government positions, letting people know what's really going on. So, as stated by Mr. Wayne Stump, it is the fact that these individuals have rescinded their contracts, driver's license, birth certificate, social security card, etc., with the United States federal government and state, as well as each of its political subdivisions, that establishes them as free men under the Organic National Constitution. What Mr. Wayne does not mention is that each individual must also be of a nation. Regarding the so-called black people in the United States, it is the fact that these people constantly answer up to names and titles given to them by some other people that causes many of their problems. The black people in America are registered with the federal and state government as chattel property and commercial commodities, slaves, by means of false names and titles, past slave owner's name, or the status of Negro, black, colored, African American, etc. on the contracts you have on file with the state or the Fed. There is no constitutional protection for Negroes, Dred Scott, Eric Garner, blacks, colored people, or African Americans, etc., because no such people exist on the planet. These terms weren't used until 1779. If the people who are referred to by these terms and accept these terms were on this planet before 1779, then these terms clearly do not apply to these people. We are Moors, period. In conclusion, I know these things because I research and I study. I read books and I spend time in libraries. Books, plenty of them. We just had 4th of July, aka Independence Day. All right. A famous quote from the time of the American Revolution is Patrick Henry's, "Give me liberty or give me death." Liberty and independence are synonymous. They mean freedom. An interesting fact about library books and liberty is that they both have the same root, as can be demonstrated in the spelling of both words. Liberty is in the library. Libraries liberate, free the mind. Now, consider this phrase, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. If you do not spend time in libraries, if you do not own a library, do you truly have liberty? If liberty is in the library, are you truly free? If you can be shot in the street because you call yourself Negro, black, or colored, then are you truly free? This is just something to consider on this day of freedom, this day of liberty, Independence Day.